Absolutely. Here's a deep, emotional, stoic path to awakening your third eye, not in a mystical or esoteric way, but in the way Stoics understood it, opening the eye of the soul, the mind behind the mind, the clarity of true perception. This is not about visions. This is about sight beyond ego, desire, fear, and illusion. Let's begin. Number 1. Kill the ego before it kills your sight. ChatGPT said, "Kill the ego before it kills your sight." The ego is the thickest blindfold you wear. It convinces you that you're the smartest in the room, even when you're drowning in ignorance. It whispers, "You're special, you're right, you deserve more." But Stoicism teaches, the ego is the enemy of truth. You can't see the world clearly if you're obsessed with how it sees you. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. Look within." Because the more you focus outward on admiration, validation, praise, the more you lose sight of the disease growing inside. Ego makes you crave attention instead of wisdom. It makes you argue instead of listen. It makes you defend a fake identity instead of discovering who you actually are. Science backs this too. MRI scans have shown that when our beliefs are challenged, the brain reacts as if it's under physical attack. Ego literally triggers our fight-or-flight response not because we're in danger, but because truth threatens the self-image we've built. So we reject feedback, deny flaws, and surround ourselves with people who clap even when we're falling. The ego doesn't scream, it seduces. It tells you, you don't need to learn more. You've already done enough. They just don't understand you. And once you believe it, growth dies. Have you ever noticed how the people who talk the most know the least? That's not coincidence. It's ego. Ego fills silence with noise. Wisdom sits quietly and observes. A Stoic doesn't need praise to feel powerful. He doesn't need to win arguments to prove worth. He doesn't fear being wrong because he's more interested in being better. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." The ego reacts. The wise man reflects. Let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the urge to be seen. Let go of your obsession with your own image. Because only when you dissolve ego can the third eye begin to open. Only then are you seeing, not projecting. Only then are you walking, not posing. Only then are you free from the blindfold that the ego so proudly stitched across your eyes. Kill the ego before it quietly kills you. Number 2, sit in stillness not to relax, but to witness. Stillness is not a luxury, it is a confrontation. The Stoics weren't afraid of silence. They craved it, not to escape the world, but to confront it without distraction, without distortion. They sat alone not to find peace, but to find the truth. Sit down for 10-15 minutes. No phone, no music, no movement. Just you, your breath, and whatever rises from the depths. At first, it will feel boring, agitating, almost unbearable, because silence forces you to meet the one person you've been avoiding, yourself. Watch the thoughts. Don't fight them, observe them. You'll start to notice patterns. I'm not good enough. She probably doesn't like me. What if I fail? These thoughts are old, recycled, mechanical. They're not insight, they're programming. The voice of your lower self, echoing your fears, your wounds, your ego. Marcus Aurelius used stillness as a weapon. He said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He didn't escape into silence. He sharpened his awareness in it. Modern neuroscience supports this ancient wisdom. Studies show that intentional stillness and mindfulness shrink the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and emotional reactivity. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex grows stronger. That's the seat of rational thought and awareness. This isn't just spiritual advice. It's biological warfare against your chaotic mind. When you sit in stillness without escape, you begin to see how much you lie to yourself, how much you chase validation, how much your fear controls your decisions. You begin to notice the puppet strings, and only by seeing them can you start to cut them. You don't need more advice. You need more silence. You don't need motivation. You need observation. Because once you witness the chaos within, you stop believing every thought as truth. You stop reacting. You start choosing. And that's the difference between a slave to the mind and a master of it. Sit, watch, endure. And when the noise fades, you will meet the one who sees, not the one who thinks, not the one who fears, the one who watches. That is the beginning of true vision. Number 3, practice voluntary discomfort to burn away illusion. The Stoics didn't wait for pain, they invited it. Not because they were masochists, but because they understood a brutal truth. Comfort is a slow poison. It wraps around your neck like silk soft, warm and slowly suffocating. Seneca said, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" He wasn't preaching poverty. He was preaching immunity. Immunity to illusion, to dependency, to fear. So what did they do? They practiced suffering voluntarily, took cold baths, slept on hard floors, wore rough clothes, walked barefoot on harsh ground, ate stale bread, and drank dirty water. Why? To remind the mind, this is survivable, this is enough. Because the real prison isn't pain, it's the fear of it. Modern psychology confirms this ancient strategy. When you expose yourself to discomfort regularly, the brain learns resilience. It's called stress inoculationa, technique used to treat anxiety, PTSD, and fear-based paralysis. By stepping into fear voluntarily, you shrink its power over you. You're not doing this to show off. You're not doing this to suffer for no reason. You're doing it to remember. You don't need luxury. You don't need praise. You don't need things to go your way. Fasting isn't just about food. It's about starving the ego. Cold showers aren't about discipline. They're about clarity cutting through comfort's fog. Sleeping on the floor isn't about being hardcore. It's about humility, remembering how little you actually need to survive. Ask yourself, if you lost everything, your house, your job, your status, could you still stand? Would your identity crumble or remain? Every time you reject comfort, you reclaim power. You kill the lie that says, "I need more to be happy." You burn away the illusion that you're in control of the world. Because true strength isn't avoiding pain. It's walking into it with eyes wide open and saying, "I'm still here. I still choose. I still see." Number 4, question every thought, especially the ones that feel good. Your thoughts are not sacred. Your feelings are not facts. And yet that's how most people live. They treat every surge of emotion as divine revelation. But the Stoics knew, truth doesn't shout at whispers after you silence the noise. Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." The pain isn't the problem. The story you tell about the pain is. The confidence isn't power. It's often delusion in disguise. Feeling angry? You assume someone did you wrong. Feeling anxious? You assume danger is near. Feeling proud? You assume you've earned your place. But the Stoic doesn't stop at emotion. He interrogates it. He asks, is this useful? Is this real? Or just ego dressed as insight? Neuroscience backs this. Most of your thoughts aren't original. They're recycled scripts downloaded from parents, teachers, trauma, and pop culture. On average, you have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and over 90% are the same as yesterday. Most are unconscious, automatic, and emotionally charged. Your brain isn't built for truth. It's built for survival. And survival runs on shortcut cognitive biases, faulty logic, emotion-based conclusions. Example, you post something. It doesn't get attention. Your brain says, "I'm not interesting." But that's not a fact. It's a story, a thought, a lie that feels real. Now flip it. You get praise. You feel brilliant. But is that truth? Or dopamine? Even good feelings must be held to the fire. The Stoic doesn't fear discomfort. He fears delusion. That's why they practice daily reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So question the color. Is this thought building you or blinding you? Ask yourself, who planted this thought? Does this idea serve me or enslave me? Would I still believe it if I had no ego? The mind is a mirror, but it's covered in dust. Every unquestioned thought adds another layer. But when you start wiping it, clean and lie at a time, you begin to see clearly. And behind the chaos of thoughts, behind the pleasure, pain, pride, fear, you glimpse something still. Something watching. That's not a thought. That's you. Number 5. Memento mori, train your soul to see through death. You will die. Maybe soon. Maybe in your sleep. Maybe before this sentence finishes echoing in your head. And that truth, if you truly feel, it will change everything. Memento mori isn't poetic. It's a weapon. The Stoics carved it into their minds like armor against illusion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This is not about fear. This is about focus. When you train your soul to see through death, gossip becomes noise, fame becomes empty, luxury becomes distraction, and stress becomes a joke. You don't panic over spilled coffee when your bones are temporary. You don't chase status when your name will be dust. You don't argue with fools when the hourglass is draining. You begin to ask, will this matter on my deathbed? Will I be proud of how I handled this when I'm gone? If I died tonight, did I live today in alignment with my soul? Most people forget. That's why they waste time, energy, and meaning on things that vanish with a single heartbeat. They plan for a future they aren't promised. They avoid the truth like it's a disease. But the Stoic makes death his teacher. He walks with it, sits with it, lets it whisper in his ear every morning, don't waste this one. Even science agrees. Studies on mortality salience show that contemplating death increases purpose, compassion, and intentional action. People who write about their death regularly are calmer, more grateful, and less reactive. Death isn't the end. It's the great revealer, and when you stare it in the face not once, but daily, the ego burns off. The lies fall away. You don't need approval. You don't need to win. You just need to be real. Because death is real. And if you forget that, you live fake. So wear it on your shoulder. Let it correct your posture. Let it sharpen your words. Let it filter every decision like this. Would I still do this? If I only had 1 week left? That is third eye living. No noise. No vanity. Just the truth stripped, raw, and powerful. Because nothing purifies vision like the shadow of the grave. Number 6. Study the great souls, not the loud voices. The world is loud for a reason. It wants to distract you. Influencers shout. Politicians promise. Ads scream. But nothing real ever had to beg for your attention, the Stoics whispered. They didn't tweet. They didn't need followers, they followed truth. Marcus Aurelius never published a book. His meditations were private notes, written during war, written while losing children, written while dying inside an empire that wanted to own him. Why does it feel like he's talking to you? Because he wasn't writing to impress. He was writing to survive. Seneca wrote about peace while forced to kill himself. Epictetus spoke about strength while crippled and enslaved. None of them had perfect lives, but all of them reached perfect clarity because they bled for it. Don't just read their quotes. Study their lives. Read their words like field notes from men who walked through fire and came out holding light. Ask, what pain did this line come from? What lie in me is this sentence trying to kill? What would this man tell me if he saw my habits today? Modern culture sells you dopamine. They sold you Marcus. They put his face on coffee mugs and Instagram carousels. But he didn't want to be liked. He wanted to be free. And that's the difference. You don't need more voices. You need one clear one. The one that calls you inward, that asks hard questions, that holds a mirror to your excuses, that dares you to suffer intentionally, not wastefully. When you study the great souls, you begin noticing when you're faking strength. You begin detecting when pride hijacks your judgment. You begin seeing your reflection in their trials, not because you're as wise, but because you want to be. And that want is where it all starts. Don't memorize their quotes. Live them. Let them burn a new code into your nervous system. Let them rewire how you breathe, speak, wait, and fall. Because you don't need louder voices. You need older ones. You need the voices of men who went to war with themselves and won. And if you read them right, their sight will become your sight, and the noise of the world will finally start to fade. Number 7, embrace pain as a doorway, not an enemy. Pain doesn't come to break you. It comes to reveal you. Every time you hit the floor, every time your chest tightens from betrayal, every time you stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering if it's all meaningless, you're not dying. You're being initiated. But the modern mind runs. You distract yourself with food. You scroll until your thumb is numb. You bury pain beneath noise and numbness, because you think feeling pain means something's wrong. The Stoics knew better. Pain isn't a punishment. It's a mirror. And if you stare into it long enough, you'll finally see what you are not. You are not your emotions. You are not your image. You are not your story. When Epictetus was beaten as a slave, he said, "If you break my leg, it will stop working." But he didn't scream. He observed, because real suffering isn't what happens to the body. It's what happens to the mind when the ego reacts. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote during plagues, wars, and loss. The impediment to action advances action. The obstacle becomes the way. He didn't say that in a journal to sound wise. He wrote it alone, cold, grieving, because it was the only way not to go mad. Pain is the test, not of your strength, but of your vision. Can you sit with heartbreak without needing revenge? Can you hold failure without blaming the world? Can you watch your image fall apart and still protect your peace? Because if you can, then you are no longer reacting. You are witnessing. You're not trapped inside the fire. You are the fire. The lie is that you're supposed to be happy. The truth is you're supposed to be awake, and pain is the price of waking up. It strips away your comforts. It silences your ego. It kills everything false, so that what's real can finally breathe. So, next time, pain knocks. I don't run. Open the door. Let it enter. Let it show you the chains you didn't know were there. Because the Stoics didn't fear pain. They walked into it with open eyes, not to suffer, but to see. And once you truly see, you'll realize pain was never the enemy. It was the invitation. The third eye is not a fantasy. It's just another name for the part of you that can see clearly. Once desire, fear, ego, and lies are removed, your soul already knows the truth. You just have to stop looking with your eyes and start seeing with your character.